welcome you all back today to another episode 6 of the 120 Pod. This is a very special episode. It is one of my fellow sepsis survivors' life days. She is celebrating today on August 4th. I will let her tell you what a life day is and what this is all about. But I am so excited about having Caitlin Alsop here today. She actually lives in Australia, so I hope our connection is going to come off okay. She is my Aussie sepsis sister, and she was a healthy 23-year-old 7 years ago in 2018 when she developed sepsis, and it almost stole her life and her tongue. So again, going to let her tell you all the details about what happened with that. It has her story has very unique twists. It started as a dental infection, and she was intubated and she lay comatose in the hospital for 9 days with her mom and dad so worried about her. Her clever play on words, Coma to Confidence on her Instagram gave rise to her website, her social media platform. That's where I discovered her shortly after my sepsis crisis, because of course I was on social media looking for any and all information I could about sepsis and looking for other survivors or anybody who could tell me that I wasn't alone in all of this. And Caitlin has certainly done that. She has been a wonderful friend, a wonderful fellow educator, awareness raiser. I mean, all of that. Caitlin is always traveling somewhere. She's always dedicated to spreading awareness, educating communities, medical providers, the dental community, and she saves lives with her relentless advocacy. Caitlin is also the founder of Face Sepsis, an Australian sepsis advocacy project that she created from the ground up. And she's also a public speaker and the creator of Courage cards, which contain messages of empowerment from sepsis survivors all over the world that are sent to patients and their loved ones who are going through challenging times. Her website says that she is determined to make a difference. And let me tell you, Caitlin certainly does. I am so happy to have her here on the podcast with me today, Caitlin. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy, busy schedule. So welcome to the 120 Pod. Today is a very special day for Caitlin. Today is her life day. And I'm going to let Caitlin tell you what a life day is. We all celebrate them. It's a very, very special day for those of us in the survivor community. So I'm going to let Caitlin explain to you what her life day is and what led her to develop septic shock. Caitlin, thank you so much for being here today. I'm really excited to have you here and have this conversation with you.
Hi, Jackie. It's my absolute pleasure, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here, especially on such a important day to me. Of course, when we talk about sepsis, we talk about sepsis families, and we also talk about survivors. And there's something special about being given a second chance at life. And so August 4th for me is my coma anniversary, my coma day, and it's the day where I really try to make sure that I raise awareness and share how lucky I am to be here and how important it is to keep fighting for sepsis survivors and families all over the world.
And you truly do. Like, I see you on Instagram. Those of you who are listening or watching, Caitlin is all over Instagram, and it's called Coma to Confidence. And I discovered her, like I did so many other survivors, on social media. Caitlin is always traveling somewhere and always working with people. I swear you never sleep.
Today's definitely been one of those days. Yeah, I'm currently in a hotel at the moment, been doing some presentations, but it's an absolute privilege to be able to use my voice to help others, and that's all I want to do in this world. So yeah, and
Yes.
that's what you're doing here too, which is really, really important. So thank you so much, Jackie.
Yes, we have to let everybody know that they're definitely not alone when it comes to sepsis. And your story has a really unique twist. The source of your infection was something that doesn't occur to a lot of people. Can you tell everyone, like, how did you go about developing sepsis? What were the signs and the symptoms? And, what happened?
Absolutely. So my story is a little bit different. I can just tell you the whole story of what happened if you like, but basically, I was a medical mystery. So when I presented to the hospital, they said to me 45 minutes and you'll be out. And there was absolutely no blame to anyone who treated me because I presented with what we thought was anaphylaxis. So I had a swollen tongue. My tongue had swollen unilaterally on one side. Um, I had difficulty breathing and I had a red rash on my face. And that's what we thought it was. So they treated me for anaphylaxis. And I actually remained a medical mystery. And I had to be transferred to the ICU of the larger hospital. And what actually ended up happening was I had something called Ludwig's angina. And so I had an impacted and infected wisdom tooth, which had caused cellulitis in the floor of the mouth. And there were talks of amputating my tongue because my tongue actually went black. And from there, I was just a mystery. So trying to figure out what was wrong with me, they thought I had mouth cancer, necrotizing fasciitis, but it ended up being Ludwig's angina, and I had an impacted wisdom tooth. I had no symptoms and no pain. I was walking 24 hours before, and then I was burning in the ICU as a medical mystery. And so this Ludwig's angina had then caused septic shock. So unknown tooth infection, no idea that this is what was going on. Thought I was healthy, and within 24 hours, I was comatose, trying to save my life. So, yeah.
Jaws on the floor. I mean, I've heard your story
So
before,
again,
but just listening to this is incredible. I mean, so did this happen in Australia? Like, I know
yes.
it was back in 2018, so that's been 7 years now,
hmm
right? How old were you then?
I was 23 at the time.
Wow. Wow. And that's about the right age for wisdom teeth, too. Well, I think anytime from like 16 to, your early 20s. But you had
Yeah.
no signs or symptoms that you had an impacted wisdom tooth, nothing.
Nothing. So I had a red rash which kept coming and going on my face. And then I went to a few different doctors beforehand. That was it. A few days before, we thought I had the flu. And I think that's really important because I can't tell you how many times I talked to people and they had sepsis and they thought they had the flu. And it was much, much more serious than that. So
Right.
for me, it was an unknown source of infection, but it can be any infection in anyone at any time that can cause sepsis. And I think that's probably one of the most important messages.
And I could see where the rash and the swollen tongue and I mean it sounds so much like anaphylaxis. It really did. I mean,
Yeah.
and they call some doctors have told me they call sepsis the great masquerader. And in your case,
Mhm.
boy, it had all its Halloween costumes on. I mean, you know, it was just that's just crazy. And now you were in ICU quite a while. You
Yeah.
almost lost your tongue, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And did you like were doctors updating you? Did you I mean, you were sedated though, right? Like you were out of it.
Yeah. So as soon as I got to the first hospital and it turned out that the treatment for anaphylaxis wasn't working,
Mhm.
so they gave me 2 shots of adrenaline and a steroid. I actually kept passing in and out of consciousness. And this is where I developed a mottle blue and red rash, which then started to burn my skin from the inside out. So mum explained it as being like a microwave. From there, they transferred me to the larger hospital. And there were talks of doing a tracheostomy in the ambulance because of the compromised airway. It's pretty scary. So I had to be in the ambulance by myself. And so by the time I got to the larger hospital, there were about 20 people waiting for me in resus, and I remained a medical mystery. And from there, they were still trying to figure out what was wrong with me. So I was a medical mystery for quite a while. But when I was in resus, they tried to do a nasal intubation and it didn't work. So that was why they put me straight under, so ventilated and comatose. So I don't actually have a recollection of people telling me what was going on. And in one way, I'm really thankful for that because I understand that it can be really traumatic. Would have been really traumatic for my family, but for me, I just remember thinking I was choking on my tongue, which you can't do apparently, but just being knocked out, and that was it. And then waking up 9 days later.
9 days later.
Yeah.
And your mother was there with you?
Yeah. Yeah.
See, being a mom, I can't even imagine my 22, my 24-year-old. She's not 23 anymore. She's 24. My 24-year-old going through this. I mean, any of my kids, I would be beside myself. Your poor mother.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my
And my dad
God.
saw up as well because it was really serious. And I was very, very lucky to have them by my side.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, oh my gosh. Yeah. Sepsis is traumatic for us. It's traumatic for our caretakers and the people who
Yeah.
are there watching this. And I know that they are starting to do a lot more research on caretakers of sepsis patients and, how they feel about all this. And it's not a pretty sight, like I said, especially with someone as young as you are, and to see you so sick. And I've seen, your photos and all those things that you post on your life day, and really just it really makes you realize how serious this sepsis is. And still, we're out here and we're educating and we're trying to make people more aware. What was the most surprising thing, do you think, like about this whole experience?
It's a really good question because, I mean, in one way, your life is completely turned upside down because you think you're healthy, and then all of a sudden, this infection just ravages your body, and you end up with septic shock, and it's a life or death scenario. And so, knowing that you can go from being so healthy to being in that situation so quickly was actually quite shocking in itself. When you have people say, "Do you understand how close you were to death?" And that's really confronting. Another part for me that was quite surprising was that I actually didn't know that I had sepsis until I was told about a year later. And finding out just how many people don't get told that they have sepsis and how alone that can make someone feel because the recovery is very unique.
It's different. It's like no other. I have chronic conditions. I've been in the hospital at least 100 times in my 62 years, and that experience with sepsis was definitely unique, and it was definitely different. And your story is so common. We
Mm.
find there are a lot of survivors who don't know they had sepsis until well after the fact. So it was a year for you. So while you were in the hospital, you were 9 days in a medically induced coma, right?
Yeah.
And then they brought you out of that coma. What happened after that? Like, did you stay in ICU? Did you go to a step down unit? Did you need inpatient rehab?
It's really hard to sort of piece it all together and remember,
Yeah.
because as you would know, like you wake up and you just feel so disoriented. I felt like I was a child. Like I really did. I didn't know what was going on. But in everything that I share about my story, I'm incredibly grateful to be here and for all the effort that the doctors, nurses, all of the medical teams did, to save my life. And that's why I want to make sure that I focus on helping other people. But coming out of it, it was very much, it was life or death. And it was a lot of intense treatment. But then once you are out of ICU, you become more independent. And so, someone comes to you and says, "Okay, get up now." And you know what that's like. And you're just like, I physically can't move my body. But I'm very stubborn and determined. Because of the fact that my tongue was actually ulcerated and black, and I lost part of my tongue. They put me on, like, it was food without solids, so a liquid diet. And they gave me tomato soup. And the tomato soup actually burnt my tongue. Um, and so, it was just that quick step down. and then I was able to go home, which I'm very, very lucky.
Right.
So it was about 2 weeks in hospital all up, which isn't very long. And then I ended up going back to hospital afterwards, and I was at home being taken care of. Luckily, mum came help me. But I went home with open wounds, so that was interesting because my hair constantly got stuck in my open wounds. Um, just for a
Oh,
bit of context, I had 16 Yates strains inserted into my neck, and that's what my scars are from.
oh my
And they had to heal because they had to be left open, and so they would put chloromycin on it.
Yeah, I've heard of that where sometimes they have to leave the wound open for it
Yeah,
to heal from the inside out. And you
yes,
had these all around your neck?
yes.
Like, oh my word, girl. Wow. Oh my
And then
gosh.
my
How long
chest.
did, oh my God, 16 of them. How long did that take to heal? And like with your tongue, like how did you have to do speech therapy or, things like that? Did it
No,
affect eating, talking?
because I was from that life or death scenario and then stepped down, there were a few things that were going to be outpatient. But basically I was able to just go back to normal life. It was normal to me. And because I
Right.
didn't know I was recovering from sepsis, I was like, okay, then I guess we just go back to doing what we can. But my tongue would ulcerate every single night, and I would actually choke on it every single night in my sleep. So mum would actually help monitor my sleep to make sure that I wasn't choking, which was, I guess, in one way, that plays on your mind when you're going to sleep as well. Um, and I just put myself onto chocolate sausagen um, because I knew that it had nutrients in it, and then slowly got into eating more different sorts of foods. Couldn't really open my mouth properly when I went home. You might have seen the photos because they've gone out
Right.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Um, and then just on my chest, because I was like burnt from the inside out, it was all scabbed and open, and then my skin would peel um, constantly. It's never really been the same, but I was so grateful to be alive. You know, I just wanted to try and help people, and I I just tried to get back to what I could. Um, Interestingly, though, when you talk about coming out of hospital with sepsis and you don't know you've had sepsis, that's probably one of the things I'm really passionate about is letting people know, because if I had a community, I would have been able to look it up. I would have been able to talk to people who, like we do these days. Um, but I was just Googling like Coma 23, Ludwig's angina, Coma, like
Right.
trying to make sense of it all.
And Dr. Google can scare the daylights out of us.
Oh yeah.
You know, I mean, you only the worst case scenarios always wind up at the top of the Google search. And it's like, okay, great, I'm gonna die now. So
Yeah.
you found out a year later. How did you find out you had sepsis?
Yeah, so again, like it was life or death. And so the hospital looked after me very, very well. But I just didn't know I had sepsis. So my story actually ended up going out randomly around the world about a year later. And I ended up doing a TV interview. And for ages I didn't want to share this part because I don't want anything negative to come about this, because I'm so grateful that they saved my life. But it was
Right.
actually in the TV interview where one of the doctors treating me was like, Caitlin had severe sepsis, which is, of course, septic shock. Um, and I remember thinking, did I? And I didn't want to say anything at the time, but I'll never forget Googling. I know Google.
Yeah.
It's not very good medically, but it's where our brain goes. And
Yeah.
it said sepsis kills someone every 2.8 seconds. And I just was so passionate about saying, if you're going to share my story, please let people know that this can happen to anyone at any time from any infection, and that we have an opportunity to make a difference here because we're just losing too many people to this. So
We
that was the
absolutely are.
catalyst. Yeah.
Yeah. We absolutely are, and most of these deaths, our audience should know, are preventable.
Hmm.
Most of these deaths are preventable. 300,000 adults in the US every year and 7,000 kids. Do you know what are the stats in Australia? I mean, the every
Actually,
2 seconds is enough, it's
yeah.
like, wow.
We're reviewing them at the moment because it seems like it may be a lot more prevalent, but I don't have the exact stats on that. But looking at about 50,000, which may actually be potentially even double that. It's
Right.
huge and it's difficult to code because people again get told they have an infection, they go home or they get a secondary infection. Um, but it's larger than the national road toll that is the death rate of sepsis. And
Yes, yeah.
when you
These
survive, that's
numbers
one
are
thing.
conservative.
Exactly, exactly. Um, just a note, we might want to check those stats because I'm not sure.
Yeah, right. Right. The numbers, they are very conservative from what I've heard. And it's also because if you consider that sepsis shuts down your organs, that's how you die. And if someone is coded on the death certificate as, oh, they died of heart failure, they died of respiratory failure,
Exactly.
but sepsis was probably behind that. So sepsis was the catalyst that caused the whatever organ to fail, or kidney failure. It seems to favor kidneys, sepsis does, like gives
Yeah.
people a lot of problems with kidney failure or post sepsis. A lot of survivors are looking for like kidney transplants because sepsis just knocked out their kidneys.
Yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize. And that's why I say I'm so lucky in my story because, it's one thing to pass from sepsis. That's really, really difficult for the family. And this family is so important in the sepsis community because it's really, really difficult to, even fathom. And then people talk about surviving sepsis, but there's so many after effects that people have. Like you've got post-sepsis syndrome, and people can have amputations and ongoing organ issues, and even the brain fog, the memory issues, the PTSD. And I think that's where so much of the community comes together, just trying to understand what's happened and what we can do to make a difference here.
Right. And that's my hope too, that with this podcast, viewers will find us worldwide and we can build and create this community of sepsis survivors and families who've lost someone to sepsis. Just like, all the cancer communities have done a beautiful job of creating support and communities within communities. And it's my hope that, the awareness grows so much, or that people who've had sepsis realize it and know that there is a community to join. You're definitely not alone. Not with all these numbers of people who get affected by sepsis every day and every 2 seconds, as you said.
Yeah, it's unfortunately a growing community, but it's certainly a community with a lot of support. A lot of people I found like a sepsis family, in the most bittersweet way, and some of the most incredible people I know have been affected by sepsis and are doing everything they can to make a difference, and just there to listen to and you know when people ask me about my story, it would have made such a difference if I had have known that I had sepsis, because then I would have been able to walk through what was happening post ICU. And I just hope that anyone else who has that opportunity and knows that the community is here.
Right. Absolutely. Now you've done, as I said in the beginning, you've done some very extraordinary things. What
Oh,
your
thank
life is like now post sepsis, and
you.
the things you've taken your experience, and first of all, and you founded Face Sepsis, correct?
Yes.
Your very wonderful education project, and this is what has you traveling everywhere, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So my story, and the Face Sepsis project, just educating people and, having that opportunity to share my story, which is one of millions out there, to raise awareness and to educate on early recognition. and to really educate the primary care space as well, because there's too many stories that people went to the doctor and they got turned away or they didn't realize it was so serious. And again, when I share things, it's not with blame, but there's so many stories that could have turned out so differently if we just recognized it early, because the mortality rate of sepsis goes up 4 to 8% each hour that it's undiagnosed. And that's a really
Right.
scary statistic, especially when people are going home.
Yes. And there's so many readmissions too after you've had sepsis. Like I came home and I was back in the hospital 6 days later. I had a post-op abscess. It was
Sorry.
common. It's like you said, this isn't about placing blame or saying, oh, the hospitals aren't doing their job or the doctors aren't, realizing what's going on. That's not it at all. It's us talking about our experiences, learning from them. And even like when I get asked to go speak to researchers and doctors, they want me there because they want to learn from my experience. And when I got that post-op infection, it's it seemed almost likely, very likely, that that would have happened because my first surgery from a colon perforation, well, I was a mess in there. I mean, I had not been NPO, and everything was, there was no surgical prep. It was just me being flown to the hospital and the doctors opening me up, and all the bacteria, all of the things they did wash out. They did the best they could. And even
Terrifying.
then, those little bacteria, some were hiding, and they
Yeah.
popped back up 2 months later. And but the point was, even with that infection, they recognized it right away and had me admitted to the hospital and had a drain put in so that they could drain the abscess. And that one did not turn into sepsis.
Oh, it would have been absolutely terrifying. And I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. Like,
Yeah, but
awful.
it is so common. It's like I said,
Yeah.
because your situation was such a life and death circumstance. One day you're well, the next day you're near death
Yeah.
and you're in the ICU and you're in this kind of condition. And doctors are trying to figure it out because, again, sepsis wasn't, it didn't even sound like sepsis. I mean, it sounded like anything, the anaphylaxis and anything else except sepsis.
Which is,
So, yeah.
yeah, it's interesting because one of my things that I like to do when I present is try and let people see what could this possibly be. Because the thing is that my story is the story of a patient that's walked through the ED that day. And this can happen. And, you never know what's going to walk through your door. And there were signs of sepsis in my story when we look back through it, because I had the mottled blue and red rash. And it's not going to be all signs, but that was a telltale sign for me. I did spike a slight fever. I did have a bit of shivering going on, unconscious, and that blurred, that speech and confusion. So there were signs there, but when we expect it to be textbook, that's when it can go wrong, because you've got to ask, in Australia, we always say, could it be sepsis? And you've got to ask, could this be sepsis? And if they had have just asked, could this be sepsis at the very beginning, potentially found that there was an infection, it could have been a very, very different outcome. But then, people say, what if they had have done it, treated it earlier? And it could have been just, IV antibiotics and walk away. But if they had have missed it and they didn't get onto it straight away and say, we need to escalate this, probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today. So it's tricky, but I think raising awareness is so important.
Right. And it is. That's such a good point that it is so very, very tricky for the doctors to tease everything out and try to figure out what's going on. And just asking, we'd say the same thing here in the States. Could it be sepsis? Ask your doctor, put that into their diagnostic criteria, as they're going down the checklist and things to check off. Yeah, could this be sepsis? And that causes them to look for the infection.
That's right. I mean, infection can be so prevalent. If you just think about the amount of times all of us have had some sort of infection, whether it be a flu, a paper cut, a grazed knee, There's so many scenarios, but just people don't understand how serious sepsis can be. And so many of our stories start with something so simple. Mine was a
Yes.
tooth, others had the flu, and just
Hmm.
knowing those signs in the general public and also in the medical community, it really can start to save lives.
Yes. And that's why we're all here. I mean, seriously, is there anything that you would like the readers to know um, about face sepsis? And where are you hoping to go with that? Like, what are your hopes for the future of sepsis awareness and survivors and recovery? Like, what are your plans to grow face sepsis? Or do you have any plans right now? Maybe you're just,
I always want to do more. I always want to do whatever we possibly can to raise awareness. And the reason I am so passionate about sepsis is because it's a medical emergency. It's such a time critical thing. So, FACE Sepsis was developed in partnership with Sepsis Australia, and it was to educate dental and primary care on the urgency and the ability to recognize that someone could potentially have sepsis. And when you get someone to a hospital, there's absolutely a pathway in place, which is fantastic. But I just wanted to bridge that gap between the patient presenting first, because it's often to a primary care physician, and then getting into hospital. And so FACE sepsis is actually an anagram, sorry, an acronym. And so FACE is just about listening to family and friends. A is awareness of sepsis. So a lot of people are just not aware. Um, C is look for changes, check vitals if you can. And E is escalate. And the most important message in sepsis education and sepsis awareness is escalating that care, getting that person onto a sepsis pathway and making sure that we can get them treated really quickly. And that starts with the awareness. This project came about. It was a 1 o'clock in the morning. Oh my gosh, can I do this? The,
that's the
the
best
whole
time to have these ideas. Seriously.
exactly the whole Coma to confidence was about the fact that the cause is so much more important than any of our own securities. Um, and it was about wanting to make a change. And I spoke to so many people who had been in dental practices, and that's where I was working at the time, um, about education in sepsis. And so many people like, I did send a patient to a hospital. I've never heard of sepsis, or we've heard of it, but we don't know how to recognize the signs. And so I just wanted to put something in place that let people know that sepsis could be anyone at any time from any infection. And that was sort of the birth of face sepsis. Um, try to make a difference.
Yes. Yes. Those 3 o'clock in the morning ideas or 2 o'clock in the morning ideas
Yeah.
are some of the best ideas. And what you're doing, it's just it's so vital to
Thank you.
just spreading awareness. Do you mostly do this in Australia? Because I do see you traveling quite a bit. So you do take to the road and take these presentations on the road.
Yeah, so I'm lucky enough to be invited to do different presentations, especially as people hear my story around the world. And it's just an absolute privilege and an opportunity to be able to be a voice for others. I can't share everyone's story, but I can certainly try to raise awareness. So, a lot of things can be done online now, which is amazing, but nothing beats face to face. Um, and
Oh, yeah.
so I do get to travel and speak at conferences and hospitals, but I love a one-to-one conversation like this as well. I do a very small part in a lot of people trying to make a difference. Um, you know, if I can help raise awareness, that's fantastic. But at the end of the day, it's the doctors and nurses that are really making the difference, and the researchers as well, trying to find what causes this and what we can do to fix it as well. So get to be involved
Right.
in a lot of different projects, which is amazing. Um, and yeah, I want to see what possible difference we can make. And I always say we face sepsis together.
together, indeed. I mean, a lot of us have expressed that preference to be in person. I love meeting people in person. I still say that you and I are going to present together one day to the dental
Yes.
schools here in the US. We are going to
Oh, the
do it. It's
dream.
going to happen. We are going, that is one of my bucket list things, not even my bucket list things. That is on my work to-do list that you and I are going to meet in person and do a presentation together. I would love that. And and just the fact that like other survivors have told me too that they enjoy being in person. They enjoy that in-person personal interaction. I don't know, during COVID, I think we all kind of got tired of the screen things. Um, but it and still that but it's still better than nothing. Like being virtual is still better than having no support at all or not being able to meet people. And so I think you know a good healthy mix of all. Like I've done presentations virtually, but I do, like yourself, I prefer to do them in person. And I wanted to ask you too, Coma to Confidence. I remember seeing that name on Instagram and I was like, oh, okay, I gotta follow this girl because I gotta see what she's all about. How that is like to me, that is the most perfect name for you because you were in the
Oh, thank you.
coma. You come out of the coma, and that now you're this confident, wonderful, vibrant person, just out there educating. You're this great educator now. And so, when did you come up with that name? How did you come up with that name?
Do you know, I love that you ask this because um, it was a hashtag that I used for myself because I have always had a red rash, which will actually come and go and will actually burn my face. Um, and, so having to go through that every day or every couple of days, is something very, very minor. But when you're presenting, and you nearly lost your tongue and then you're presenting, there's all these things that sort of come to mind, but it was about the fact that that journey from coma to confidence, and it's that ongoing journey. So I actually can be an incredibly shy person, like we all can, but the
Yes.
cause is so much more important. And when it comes to sepsis and sepsis awareness, I always say, like, whatever you want me to do. I've jumped out of a plane. That was something I was really determined to do, to raise awareness, because the cause is so much more important. We're all on that journey, especially during that recovery from, waking up in the ICU, having no idea what's going on, to um, being asked about your own journey. Even that one-to-one of tell me about your journey can be really confronting. And it's just that acknowledgement that we're all on that journey, going from coma, from sepsis to being with community. And for me, raising awareness, and for some people, raising awareness can just be talking to your neighbors, your friends, and not being afraid of the story. And my mum actually was one of the people who said, I wanted to hide behind a blanket. And when I first came out, and she was like, no, pull that blanket down. And I never in a million years would have thought that my story would go out all over the world, but that's been an ongoing journey, from the girl with a really burning face rash, to getting to present in front of thousands of people and raising that awareness. So yeah.
Kudos to your
And the
mom
pink.
there. Moms can get you out there, and I do, yes, and I love the pink and the um but that definitely, just listening to you speak, Caitlin,
Oh,
I'm in awe. I'm in awe. And the fact that I know you had mentioned this to me, I think before, that here you are, you almost lost your tongue, and here you are now speaking. That
yeah,
did not silence you. It hasn't, it will not silence you. And yet here you are
that's
speaking
it.
up for sepsis.
Oh, thank you so much. And that's all I want to do. It is ironic, and there was a quote that I came up with, which I guess sums up my life, which is nearly losing my tongue. I gained a voice for a cause that I knew nothing about, and now I absolutely love any opportunity to raise awareness for this because it's such a huge beast for any of us to tackle, but it impacts so many lives. And, we're having this conversation, and right now there's someone who's battling sepsis, doctors trying to figure it out, and researchers trying to figure out why. And when we face sepsis together, we have that opportunity to make a difference. And that's all I want to do. And I'm only one of many, many people, yourself included, having this podcast. Like, we all play our part.
Definitely do. And that last, oh, Caitlin, that last bit you just said, it's just so, it's really getting me. It
I'm
really
sorry.
gets, no, it's great. I mean, it's great to be here and listening to you and having you tell our audience this wonderful inspirational message. And I am going to have your Instagram linked in the description box below, and your LinkedIn and website, and Sepsis Australia's information, of course, too. And we'll put all of that in there. If there are any other links, let me know. I'll make sure that we get them in that description box for the timing of this episode to air, which, like I said, yes, today is going to be August 4th when this airs for your Life Day. So
Thanks,
happy Life
Jackie.
Day, Caitlin.
Oh,
So
thank you so
glad that
much.
you're still here. The world needs so many people like you. It truly does.
And people like you, it's scary to start a podcast. It's scary to have a voice and start sharing your most vulnerable parts, but this is how you're going to make a difference. And I see so many people that you impact every single day. So thank you so much to you. And you know, there's one thing I just want to share because I keep picturing it in my mind. But I remember when I had sepsis, I started something called Courage Cards. And I think what they originally started is what you're doing. And the picture I had was someone in a hospital bed just being able to reach out to a community. And ironically, it was with headphones on. So there you go. There could be someone right now listening to this podcast, knowing that they're not alone. And I think that's one of the most important messages. And that's what the sepsis community is for.
Bingo. And your courage cards too. Yes, we gotta put that in the description box. I mean, thank you, Caitlin. You've done so many wonderful things, and this podcast, yeah, I'm still building the plane as we're flying here. So
Good
many of
here.
you who were so wonderful to come on in the beginning when I am still learning and still figuring this out. In a year from now, I'll have you back on for your next Life Day,
Oh,
and the podcast is going to be it'll be so much better because I think I'll be
that's
so much better
amazing.
at doing this. But thank you so much, Caitlin. It's wonderful, and thank you for joining me from your hotel there, from your taking a break from your very busy schedule to come on here with me today. And thank you so much. And I hope you have a beautiful day. And I want to thank my audience too for tuning in again today to hear Caitlin's story and to learn all about the wonderful things that she is doing for our sepsis community.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you so, so much, Jackie. And keep doing what you're doing because you're helping people. And at the end of the day, that's all we can do is face sepsis together, make a difference.
Definitely. Thank you, Caitlin.